By the end of this video, we will learn how to create these amazing micro interactions in Figma. This is part 1 of 2 where we will first master components and variants. Why? Because I said so. No! Components and variants are the one which are used to create micro interactions and animations. So let's learn them first. Roll it. Say you're just designing a website. Obviously, when you're designing a website, you know that you'll use buttons multiple times. One for the home page, one for the product detail page, one for the checkout page, add to cart page, vagera vagera. So you have done this design of the button like a layout, and both you and your client loved it. Like the size, the color, the text you have used, the font and all those things. Now it's confirmed that all the buttons will follow this layout because in your design, these elements have to be consistent. Right? Like the buttons or the icons, they have to have this consistent layout. It may be the size, color and all those things. Now let's duplicate this button because as I said, you'll be using multiple buttons throughout your website, right? So let's say this button will be used in add to cart page, and let's do one more. Now you have all these buttons that you'll be using throughout your website, and each of the button will be moved to its respective position far away. But as I said, they have to be consistency. Every button should follow these properties. But when you're done with the design, you have placed all the buttons in the respective positions like far away, and then the client says,
Hey, what is this da? What's the color? The size? Make it big. What's the font? Make it bold. Don't know how to design and all. Comes to learn everything. Go!
And now that's the sad part. Now it's your duty that you have to select each of the button and do the changes. Like I have to change the color of this to a different one. The text I want it to be extra bold, not me. The client wanted to be extra bold italic. So now when you have done the change, the client says, yeah, this is good. Now you have to select each and every button which are like in a different position in different page. You have to again change the color, the font inside it, extra bold, light for all these buttons. Kind of long and kind of lengthy. But now we will use the concept called components to make it more simple and do the changes in one click. How do I do that? So let's undo. At the initial point, the client do love this layout, the color and all those things. He loved it. At that point, it's confirmed that you'll be using this layout. So first select this element or the frame and go to this 3 dots over here and choose create component. So when you created a component, the one thing you'll notice is nothing but the color. You can see the outline has changed to purple color and there's a new icon over here. I'll just zoom like this. There's a new icon. So there you go. This is a component that you have just created for the button. Now again, you'll just duplicate because you'll be using the buttons in different positions, right? So I'll just duplicate. What has changed? You can see in this button 0, we can see the name over here clearly, but over here we don't have that name. And in the layer section, you can see the icon has been changed to like empty one. Because this button 0 is nothing but the main component, or we can say the parent component. And this, which we have duplicated from this button 0, becomes the child component or instance. So whenever you create a component for the first frame on itself, it becomes the parent component, and whenever you duplicate main component, you'll get this child components. And another way to get this child components is nothing but you go to assets and you'll find this button 0, this main component in this assets, and you just drag it. There you go. So this is our main component and this too becomes our child components. So in the previous example, as I said, I'll just again take this for example. So here I have just got this main component and I've just duplicated and changed the context. So there you go. Now again, as I said, the client will give some changes like the color of the button or the size or the text and everything. The point here is nothing but instead of going to each and every button and changing the required properties, you can just select this parent component and let's change a property like fill. I'll go with this orange and there you go. The moment you have changed the property of this button 0, the main component, every child component's property has been changed. That's about components. Yeah, that's it. Whenever a property has been changed for this parent component, the same property in the same way has been changed to all these child components. So again, let's say the size. Let's say I want it to be small. There you go. The size of all the buttons has been changed. The child components has been changed respectively. And not only that, even the text over here. I'll go with this same font but bold italic. There you go. Every child component's properties has been changed with respect to this parent component. And remember that this component is not only for buttons. This is an example I'm taking. Say that this child component and you thought that this confirm has to have different color because it represents like successful, right? So I'll go with this green. Okay. So what I have done, I have changed the property of the child component, not the parent component. So there you go. Now you can also give individual colors if you want for the child components, or you can go with the color that you have gone with this parent component. So again, let's say I'll go with this parent component and change the color. Do you think that the color of this child component will also change? Let's see. So go to button 0 and let's go with blue. There you go. There's no change for this child component color because at this point the connection between these two, the parent component and the child component, only for the fill has been broken. What I mean by that, you see the size of this button is nothing but 1593357, right? And the size of this child component is also 1593357. So the connection between this parent component and the child component regarding this layout is still connected. So let's say I change another property, the size. There you go. The size of this child component is also changing, but not the fill, because the link or connection between this main and child component regarding the fill has been broken, but the other are still there. Even the text, I'll change the text to light. There you go, everything has been changed. So right now you have understood that I can create a number of child components and also go with some individual properties I want, and the other properties can be still connected. Great. And next thing, say that you have changed the text for this child component to something light, and as I said, this buttons will be at different positions, right? Far away from the others. This button is in a different page at different position. But I thought that the font is like awesome for this button type and color is also awesome. So I want every button to follow these properties. How can I do that? So you have to go to main component to do the changes, right? So again, right click and main component. Go to main component. There you go. If I click that, we have gone with this main component and I can change the fill to the which I loved for this child component and go with this light. And there you go. Every button has been changed. And let's bring back my child. Sorry. Other thing. Let's say I want this child component to be on its own. I don't want to have any connection between this child component and this parent component. All the connections have to be broken. It has to be on its own, like Freebird. I love that. And it's simple. Right click, detach instance. And there you go. Now this button 3 is on its own. The frame is on its own. There is no link between this button 3 and this main component. Okay. I'll just undo. Now the last thing about this component is nothing but, let's say you have done some n number of changes, like lot number of changes to this child component or the parent component. Like I'll go with this light italic, and the fill you have gone with some different color. And now you're thinking like, I love this layout, the color and all those things. I hope I want this for all the child components and even the parent component. So you may be thinking, I'll just right click, go to the main component and do the respective changes. But as I said, you have done some n number of changes, n number of property changes that you still cannot remember. You can do that simply from the child component itself. What I mean by that. So right click and main component, push changes to main component. Hit that. The parent component properties have been changed similar to this child component. And again, as these child components are connected to this parent component, the same properties has been changed to all the buttons, or let's say other elements that you have just created a component. So interesting trick is nothing but, whenever you're creating components, make sure the parent component is on a different page and use these child components in the designs. Don't use any parent component in the design, because when you put them in a different page and when the client gives some changes, you can just go to that respective components page, do the changes and good to go. What's the time? Okay, now let us talk about variants, because the components are done. And if there's anything I have forgotten regarding the components, just leave that, because you don't want that right now. Now, let's take another assumption, because there are no designs that you and I have done, right? We are just lazy. You have just designed these 4 buttons, like 2 green buttons, that is nothing but the payment is done, it is successful, and 2 red buttons saying that the payment has been cancelled or there's an error. Now we have this big size and the small size, big size and the small size. So the thing here is nothing but, you can say that these all 4 buttons are same, right? They're all the same, but at different scenarios. One, when the payment is done, we'll go with this button, and when we want that in a smaller size, we'll go with this button, and when the payment has been cancelled or there's a mistake or error, we'll go for this button, and again for smaller size, we'll go with this button. So right now it's good. Now the designs are good. I'll be using this in my design. So I'll select all the 4 buttons, and now I have to create a component. So again 3 dots over here, And we have these 3 new options over here. Oh my god. I have to go with create component because that's what I said earlier. So create component. Super. Now I need a duplicate because I need a child component. So go to assets and child component. Oh, what is happening over here? You see when I selected these 3 buttons and gone with this create component, a component has been created for these 4 buttons included. So the child components will also have these 4 buttons inside that frame. But we don't want this one. We want separate buttons, separate components. So again undo. So again let's go to these 3 dots and the next option, create multiple components. Yes, that's what we want. Create multiple components. So each button became its own component. So I can go with assets. Again, problem or the con is nothing but we will be having n number of components for a single button, because as I said, these 4 are like the same buttons but at different scenarios. And for that we have gone with 4 types. When you're having more number of scenarios but using the same element, or in this case button, the main components will be like more and more. Again, you have to drag each button like this, the one you want, and it's kind of lengthy and untidy. So that's where variants come into action. Again, let's undo. Now the last option is nothing but create component set. So what's that? When I hit that, you again got this component 1, same as the first one. So I'll go with the sets and drag. Voila! There you go. You can see over here, right? You have this component 1 and 4. Those 4 represents that component 1 is a set, and inside that set we have these 4 variants 1, 2, 3 and 4. So there you go. We have got this successful green. Now let's say I want to go with this error. So how can I do that? Select the child component and you can see set button 4, button 5, button 6 and button 7. The buttons that we have named. Sorry for the bad naming. Let's go with button 5. There you go. We got this button. I want this error. I'll go with button 6 and there you go. We got this big error. If I want this small error, I'll go with button 7. There you go. Small error. That's it. You have gone with single component 1 and even in the sets you gone with this single component 1. In the earlier case, you'll be having like 4 components, right? But right now we have a single component and these 4 are the variants, and you can switch between the variant you want easily over here. That's about variants. Super. And I can also go with the individual changes I want. Like this, individual changes can be done, and also the other will be same as the parent one. What's one more thing we can do with this variants? Because if I want to switch, I have to go to this property 1 and select the one I want. What if there's a toggle switch? Or some different neat and clean properties? Yes, you can do that. First I'll go with this button 4 because green is very good. Now I have to create 2 properties for this component 1. Why? Because I said so. If you can see, this component set can be divided into 2 properties. One like the payment status. One is the payment done or is the payment error. One property over there, and another property size. Is it big or small? Big or small, right? So we can create 2 properties. One is status and the size. Select this component 1, the main component, and let's remove this property 1. Let's start from the scratch, and there you go. We have this default because there has to be at least 1 property. And now to edit this property, hit this property edit, and now I can change the name to, as I said, and the default value will be, I'll give done, the green one. So we have the status and the default value is done. Now I have to add property number 2 for size. So to do that, hit this plus and there you go. Go with variant. We have this new property and the name will be about, and the default will be big. Create property. So there you go. This component set has 2 properties, status and the default value is done, size and the default value is big. Now it's your time to assign each of this element to that property. Why so? Again, I said that. Now the first variant, it has to be, yeah, status done and size big. Good to go. Successful. Status done, but the size has to be small. So I have to add a new value and name it as small. There you go. Variant number 2, status done, size is small. Now this one, size big, yes, but status, it has to be error. So I will add new value and it will be called as error and big. So the last one will be error and small. So each one has been assigned to its respective property and value. There you go. When I select the child component, and there you go, we have this simple way to switch between these variants. Status, I want it to be error and size small. There you go. Done, we got the one we want. And even the client can be switching these variants easily if they want. I know they won't because it's all your hard work. Yeah. One more trick, okay? If I want to have a toggle switch, like if I have only two values, I can go with toggle switch. What I mean by that? Again, one more last time, select this component one. Let's edit this property and let's change the value. Done, let's go with, yeah, it is done. And error, let's say, no, it is not done. So we gone with this values yes and no. And also let's change this values to, let's say, big represents true. And given this small as false. So what we have done, this status we have given yes and no. Size we have gone with true and false. Now go to the child component and there you go. We have this toggle switches. Super. Status I want it to be no. There you go. Error. And as I said, true is nothing but big. And I'll go with small. There you go, small. So toggle switches. So this toggle switch you can get only when you name your values as yes, no or true and false. That's about variants. Yeah, that's about components and variants. Now, one more thing, if you want to add a variant over here, this has like 4 variants, right? If you want to have another variant over here, hit this plus over here, or you can add by hitting this add variant. And there you go, we have this 5th variant, and I can also do the changes to the required I want. Super. Right? So that's about components and that's about variants. Now, I cannot drag more than that because I have to also teach micro interactions, right? So if there are any small topics I have missed in this components and variants, we'll cover that in micro interactions and animations. So until then, bye.